everybody, and welcome to Beyond Instinct. Today, I've got Chris Wilson with me from Health Tech Global. He is the founder and CEO, and he is a stress scientist. I met Chris through a mutual contact called Carla, who's been on here before, and she said that he would blow my mind and keep my interest high, and that's exactly what he's done. So I will let him introduce himself. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much. Yeah, Chris Wilson. The first question I always get is, what on earth is a stress scientist? And the little flashback there is my body of research was around what we call multi-stressor environments, where I could put you into mountainous environments and we would look at sleep deprivation, altitude, temperature, physical exertion, and significantly looking at your immune and stress response to those environmental factors. Very much looking at the athlete and the military space because of those environments. But eventually I was, let's say, dragged, kicking and screaming, into the corporate space. Really because there was this craving for the ability to quantify stress. We knew it. This was, several years ago in Australia, but we knew it. We'd done our surveys on it. We knew there was this rising, let's call it an epidemic, if you like, of stress and the impact in the workplace. And then there was this transition piece around the old school thinking, I can say that at my age, of it's not my responsibility, why should I care? Into, right, this is now our responsibility, and the dynamics of work have changed. And so capturing that moment where corporates were going, we really need to be able to have eyes on and visuals on these stress metrics. That's where this pull was, look, can you come in and give us some data around how stressed and where the risk sits inside our people and our teams?
Yeah, because I guess the way that has been measured up until I met you is on a feeling. I feel stressed. I feel that I've got burnout. But there's so many variables actually of, are they stressed? Are they stressed to them? Is it a different limit versus obviously the level that you go to, which would, if you want to explain it, that'd be fantastic.
It's true. So we're seeing this interesting piece now where people are interchanging the word stress to burnout. Now, Chris, I'm a little bit burnt out right now. And that I use that as a context for myself, but about how we're normalizing this conversation. And, if ever you've had someone and experienced and been in the vicinity of someone who is experiencing or has been through burnout, you'll understand that it's classified as a trauma. And what we've got now is we've got this almost desensitizing to the word burnout because we're all a little bit burnt out right now. And what we've got is the data that's coming out, like the wellbeing at work survey 2025 has come out, and we've got the worst health wellbeing metrics in the workplace ever. But we've had this 5-year run up of investing in wellbeing programs and investing in our workforce about improving those wellbeing metrics. So what are we missing? And what do we measure? This is my point. What are we actually measuring, and how accurate is that measurement?
Yeah, so that's really interesting actually, because obviously in the last 5 years, we've seen a massive rise of things like working from home, which is meant, well, in commas,
You are
meant to be better for well-being.
Yeah.
I think it's not as black and white as that. I think there's an argument that sometimes it's detrimental to well-being, being isolated.
Absolutely.
And also we have we have, as you said, the well-being programs. We have a lot of employee benefits and awareness and check-ins and everything else. So if this has got worse, what's your theory?
God, that's a very big question, but let's get to the point quickly. I think it's one-dimensional. I think that the way we are measuring it and the way we are using that data is missing a few beats.
Okay.
And I used to beats the heart. I get it. But for me, just asking someone how stressed they are, I could do it now. I'd stand up in front of a beautiful room full of amazing people and I'd say, put your hand up if you're stressed, and roughly 80% of the room would put their hand up and say they're stressed. And then we would say to them, right, what does that mean? So, well, and they'd normally give me a reason for the way they're feeling. So it's the kids, it always boils down to the same categories, but it would be finance, it would be work-related stress, it'll be health, it'll be something to do with that. If you look at that, how they're feeling and then how they amplify that out to the world, we sometimes see there's a missing link. So we need the qualitative data and the quantitative data to go, all right, so we've got this physiological stress response in the body and we understand the risk that plays. And then we've got this feeling, this mental side and the link between the physical and the mental and how they both come into play. And when you break all of that down, we start to look at, well, what's actually causing this on an individual level? Do you need more time away? That doesn't solve any problems. Do you need to take your annual leave? Do we incentivize you to become more engaged at work? The bit is, we need to have multiple layers. We call it a multi-modality model. There's never one thing that solves all the problems. And that's where it gets noisy in the workplace, because work and organizations don't know how to multi-layer this on an individual level. We blanket wellbeing programs across the organization. And often we spend far too much money. It misses the mark. We get poor buy-in, so we don't move the metrics.
Yeah.
And Health Tech Global is now using technology to be able to identify where the risk sits inside the business. So we almost heat map an org chart to be able to show you where the risk sits according to the physiological data from your employees.
Okay. And I think that what I'm hearing from you on the analytics side of the survey that's just come out, it's probably similar to what I thought of the other day. So anxious. So if you went back 10 years, you'd rarely hear someone say they're anxious. Now, I speak to people and they're always anxious. And I feel that maybe what they're doing is they're feeling something and they're going, okay, well, I can use stressed, I can use burnout, I can use anxious. It's going to be one of those, bang, it's one of those. Versus actually probably the education, the understanding of what that feeling is. I don't know if I'm going off point here, but similar to the scenario of excitement and like nerves. It's kind of the same feeling. It depends on how you label it.
Yeah, so there's a few layers in there. One is we talk about health literacy. And that is when I speak to people about how they're feeling, most of the time we don't know how to articulate it. We've just got a certain vocabulary that we use.
I think that was the long way around of me trying to explain.
Yeah, that's okay. I absolutely picked up what you were putting down. So we've got this health literacy piece about, that's why we've got to marry them both. We can't just go on the feelings and then mapping words to the feelings, because that depends on how they're mapped and our interpretation of that. And so the language, if I ask you a question or I ask 100 people a question, their interpretation of what that word and language means will be completely different. So we need to be able to map for an individual. Okay, so you're using this word, but if we look at the physiology, what's that showing us? And that then gives them an understanding of, okay, so when I feel that, that's a reaction in the body. And then we flip the script on that and saying, well, actually, stress is really good for you. And your relationship with these feelings is really important. And we can utilize these. You mentioned it earlier, like an athlete who, we could say it's nerves, and we got to channel the nerves. People who get on stage and do public speaking, we talk about suppressing the rise in the energy and lowering that energy to be able to control emotion. So their voice and their tone. We've got all these little examples we use about understanding the emotion they're going through, the physiological response they're going through, and then channeling that to whatever it might be, to be more engaged at work, to be more present at home with the family, to whatever's important to them.
Okay, that's good. So when you say measuring the physiology, so beforehand, well, it's not fair to blanket it, but beforehand what we're doing is we're asking people what they believe they feel, even though they're not probably the experts in that area. So that'd be like asking me a question on, I think it's a really bad example, and stumble myself now, but a question on something that I have just got very little knowledge about, and a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. So you've got all these people walking around going, I'm so stressed, where they're probably not stress. They could be something else. So what you do, or what Health Tech Global does, is you're measuring the physical state as well as the mental state.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And would you like to explain a little bit of how you do that?
Yeah. So for many years, you can see, they can't see, but you can see I don't wear any tech now. So I've tried the whole headbands, chest straps, watches, rings, subcutaneous sensors. I've tried all of these things, working with athletes and then in the coaching and consultancy world. And what I really wanted to do was to be able to reconnect back to self, so understand the feelings. And part of my work is about raising that health literacy and then understanding early warning signs as an individual. So how do I know I'm getting negatively stressed? And then what have I got in my tools? Because currently we've got things like you can breathe your way through it. Great, beautiful. Breathing is really important. Don't underestimate that. Meditation, great, wonderful. Sleep's important. Yeah, we know. Great. Relationships with alcohol and all these types of conversations. These are tools that we can use, that we can pick up and put down as and when we want to push harder and accelerate, or sometimes we need to regress the load and do what we might call an active recovery. So what we're doing now with health tech is we got rid of all the gadgets, because we used to almost pack suitcases and send them to clients. And then the data that used to come back was sometimes noisy. And then we are using saliva kits. So I've got a beautiful human called Joe Dunbar, who's based in just outside Gatwick, down by London, and really using the saliva biomarkers. Of course, you can understand during COVID, no one wanted to touch saliva, especially me. So that forced me to move in a slightly different direction. But we use biomarkers. Saliva is non-invasive. That's why we use saliva. Whereas now we can do something called a healthy selfie, which we've got access to technology now on a mobile phone that can basically do a subcutaneous capillary and optical imaging of your capillaries. And that is now medical grade, or the accuracy now that can tell us all your vital signs. And so we're seeing this shift, and I'm talking about Health Tech Global here, where we used to use biomarkers and the conventional send out kits and pay licenses and generate reports. And now we're going, well, everyone's got a mobile phone in their pocket, and all you've got to do is put your face in your camera for 30 seconds and we can give you your vital signs. We can give you your stress, heart rate variability, and
really? Wow.
It's phenomenal what's coming out.
And then once they've gone through this, do you get a big mismatch of where they think they are versus where they truly are? And then follow-up question to that, how do they bridge the gap? Because if they've identified with I'm always stressed, and then you've done that selfie, and they go, yeah, there might be a little bit there, but you're not at 100% like you were saying, you're on 30. Does their state change instantly? Do they fight against it? Do you have a bit of all sorts? Like, what's the scenario?
Yeah, so there's two things to go into without, I'm trying to get in my brain a little map here. But if we start talking about the bidirectional, so your feelings can impact your physiology can impact your mental state. We know that. So exercise makes us feel great, but also
afterwards.
Yeah, sorry.
There are some
exercise is fun
that love exercise in the moment, but they're very rare.
Yeah, good luck to them.
Yeah,
but it's that bidirectional piece is important. So how you feel can often mean that our physiology can follow, and our physiology can then dictate how we feel. So if we start to get this mismatch, then we start to go, all right, so what's going on? What's the reason why we're starting to articulate and use this language in our responses? And sometimes, for me, in my world, that would be like a coaching type CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which I would get the experts in to do. And we can start to then shift the behaviors and then shift the mindset that can then put us to where we want to go, wherever that goal is.
Okay.
If I paint a slightly different picture, talking to an individual, we would have to do a lot of work around what is the goal of the individual. And that could be anything, right? I wanna be able to have more energy to play with my kids, right? Or I want to have a successful career. It could be, we can go anywhere we want. I want to look great on the beach. I don't know. Typically in my world, though, the organization is the one that engages us because they want to be able to map where the risk sits inside the business. Now, that changes the conversation slightly because it then becomes a work-related conversation. Okay, so I've got an organization that's going to bring us in. But Chris, what we want you to do is we want to map our teams to identify, where the reds are, where the possible referrals are, or where is the team that's got more capacity to be able to push harder. Great. Then we start to look at the team dynamics, and then we start to look at the individuals. And then what we need to do is map those individuals to team requirements, and then we need to map those individuals to the strategy of the business. Now, you and I were having a personal conversation around how the individual feels, but now we're talking about organizational level engagement, where I've got this workforce, Chris, we're not seeing the numbers we need. We need you to come in and start looking at whether they've got capacity, whether we need to regress the load, whether we need to support them in a different way. But the ultimate goal of all of that is to be able to meet the organizational goals, needs, requirements.
And what's the response at the individual's level?
Yeah, that depends on the culture of the organization, right? If the current employees feel like they're being whipped or being stretched already, and then the language and the communication piece is, we need to push the business harder, then obviously they're probably going to have a foot out the door.
Mm.
There is also a risk in there that states, well, we are going to have to speak to the organization because there's a need to be able to be upfront and go, we may discover some people need to be referred. Some people might be at risk. And I'm talking about from a burnout perspective, let's say. They might need to go to a GP. And what we've got in our world now with the access to this type of metric, this data, is that we do start to see underlying. We get early detection. And that's another thing that businesses are then now looking forward to and going, okay, we can identify the risk from a health perspective of our employees before it materializes, before we then start to get lost days at work, absentees, or then we start to get health claims, insurance, all of the rest of it. So we're speaking heavily to health insurers at the moment, talking about how we could partner with them to then start to look at organizations who are willing to invest in this type of metric to help understand where is the risk in our business and where is the risk to our people.
I think that's really interesting. So I think from my side, we had wellbeing scenarios, we had employee engagement, all of those kind of things. And I think then obviously COVID accelerated all of that massively. I think for a long time, employers have been in a situation of, let's just have a wellness plan, job done, tick in the box. I think it's a bit of a sort of misty, smoky, grey area of, okay, fine, so we've got an actual problem, how do we deal with it? Deal with it, sorry. I think we've had scenarios where, not personally, but in a landscape where you've got a culture that's ended up being created that you think you're doing really well, you're getting claims as well, and you're in this whole mess. As where now I think if we can more about education versus just, okay, cool, one company offers a wellness thing, let's give them that. Everybody gets a bit of healthcare, everybody gets 3 days counselling a year or whatever. That's just a plaster on it, isn't it, really? As where now, if this is what I'm hearing is if it's communicated in the right way, the employees are going to get educated further. They're going to understand themselves better. They're going to understand where their strengths are. They're going to understand where they need to be worked on. We're also looking at a scenario where we can pull out underlying health issues that people may not know. I've never been through the process myself at the moment, but I'm assuming what it will do is the ones that are, say, you may have a key player that's sort of pulling a whole team of 10, they're going to get told they need to slow down. The others are going to get told they need to assist more. But again, if it's communicated in the right way, I think it's a positive. So my long story is, how long does this process take, I guess, for an individual? And do you find, sounds a bit loaded, but I don't want it to be loaded, I want it to be honest. Do you find the engagement from the employees is higher at the end of it in this scenario? Or will it do something like other processes do? The ones that are like, I don't believe in this, they'll just go. And the ones that do stay, I don't know.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've engaged with the university in the US and the university here in the UK to do what we do, benchmark data. And so the first engagement with an organization is, let's get into your organization for a month and we'll start collecting the data, and then we'll generate a report and then we'll present back. Now, within that month, because it's on your phone, you're getting instant feedback about what your current results are.
Employee level or direct level?
Employee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they know it's happening.
Yeah.
And then they've got a report back going, you're X, you're Y.
Yeah. So the organization will engage us for a month to go and collect data. We then put a license on your phone. So it's your own personal phone. You then start to take measurements through your phone, but you're getting the instant feedback about what blood pressure, heart rate. So that's the health literacy bit. We're starting to, you're then, over a month, it's not every day, but the cadence of that engagement, you can start to understand, well, where's my current state? How is it changing over the week? How is it changing? So I've got that individual engagement piece. After a month of collection, we then report back to the organization. And of course, that could be, is there a conversation to be had? You know,
that's interesting. If that's how you heat that, then, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the individuals engage because, you know, I've just got you just said you got rid of all tech. I just upgraded to like a garment because I heard that they're really good. And I'm quite obsessed with
Phoenix.
data. Yeah,
Garment Phoenix
8.
Yeah. I love them. So this, and I said this so many times on different podcasts, I love what's going on right now, because what we've got this feedback machine on us all the time. People start talking about fatigue index and stress index and sleep scores, and never before.
Yeah.
Now, the accuracy is another conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. So, that's okay. But
I think I use it as a guideline. I don't use it. It's like this one's got something called body battery.
Yep.
Apparently I'm at 52%.
Yep.
So does that mean that, you know, it's not even midday yet. So by 6 o'clock tonight, am I finished? Like so it's not 100%.
No, but the power of that is your decision making for your afternoon and your. If we think about people's business activities, so when we talk about,
I'm a morning guy.
Yeah.
So I try not to make any decisions after 2 o'clock. After 2 o'clock, it's for meeting, communicating with the team, spending time. All my heavy liftings in the morning. That's just who I am.
As it should be from a circadian rhythm.
Oh, okay.
However, you've got autonomy. You've got power in decision. If you're employed, sometimes we feel like we don't have that. So you've got to sit at your desk until 5 p.m. regardless. But we can still support the individual about when their activities. So in your, so we call autonomous business rhythms, part of that is trying to map out what activities work best in what time of the day. So I've met people along the way who could not and will not, because we won't allow them to speak to clients in the afternoon, because their cognitive function, their executive decision making, all of that is tapered. And so and then the experience that the client is getting, or the potential client is getting in that time of the day, is poor. So their ability to close a contract, because they're engaging at certain times of the day. And this organization was filling the morning up with morning meetings.
Yeah.
Set up by day. So they're blocking out your calendars for you. So the only time we had was to do the heavy lifting in the afternoon. It's like, no.
I feel creativity is usually, so from my office environments that I'm in, the creativity is higher in the afternoon. The get stuff done focus scenario is morning.
And that's typical.
Okay, yeah. So I've never really thought about it, but I purposely have like an operational meeting on a Monday morning. This engagement. We don't need creativity at that point. We need drive, get done. What did we say last week, etc., etc. Check-ins. We do a thing of check-in personal. All that sort of stuff. It's really good. But other meetings, about other areas of the business that we're just sort of discovering, thinking about. 2:00 onwards. Training, I tend to do engaging training. Like if you were just sat and I was at a whiteboard, it's pretty boring, but sort of like, so sales, we do role play training, that kind of thing. Afternoon. Because I think people are just a bit more relaxed in the afternoon.
Absolutely. So if I'm a trainer, which I am for the likes of Carla, if I'm running a session in the afternoon, how I engage and my tone and my pace, how much depth I go into has to change depending on the individuals in the room. And so that's all based around trying to meet them where their typical circadian rhythm and cadence. How are they best going to absorb that information? How are they best going to engage with that information is all relevant. And so all this comes from looking at the individual, looking at what state they're in. I'll give you an example. Yesterday I was talking to some beautiful humans talking about growth mindset.
Okay. I tag that one on on LinkedIn a lot.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm a coach and facilitator on trends for Matthew Syed consultancy. So Matthew Syed, black box thinking. I'm not selling his stuff. There's no commission here. But I work with him and deliver his workshops or for his consultancy group. Now, talking to these two individuals yesterday, they were like, well, it's just a matter of shifting into a growth mindset. I said, well, that's great, but if you've got someone in a high negative stress state, it's difficult for them to find positivity. So depends on the current state of the individual as to whether they've got the capacity to shift into a positive growth mindset. And that small little, what we might seem obvious conversation, but they've done the training and they've done the exam and they've done the assessment. So but that's not always the case because the physiology will shift the way we can engage.
What we were saying earlier, what people find home as well.
Yeah.
So I've noticed this in some individuals that are particularly, I wouldn't even say they're negative, but they're just critical or they don't believe they can or it can or whatever.
Yep.
It's like they love living there. It's almost like that they could, I don't know, what they would class as success. Let's say they could win the lottery and they'd be negative that they haven't won twice as much kind of thing. Like it just seems to be their home of where they live. And I think that's probably to the point that you're making. That is a very, very hard shift because that person's got to change identity almost, let alone anything else.
Yeah. So when I said before, like CBT, it's not your conventional coaching. It's about unlocking. So if I've got someone who has adopted to these behaviors, if we talk about that, and the way they do their daily routines and how they interact with the world around them, to unravel that could be some really deep work. And we could talk about parenting and we can talk about, experiences, sometimes very negative. And all these can shift and control the way people then project that to the world. That sounds very vague. That's a bit wishy-washy for the audience listening. But sometimes if we've gone through trauma, we become very protective. It's a survivalist type. Or if I've gone through burnout before, the chances of going through it again are high because I've got this rebound piece.
That's interesting because I think I may have gone through burnout. When I still owed money on one business. I made a decision to buy another business with a partner. That partner, for one reason or another, day before we were buying it, didn't have half of the money to buy the business. Threw me in a world of pain. I don't believe it was directly their fault. It was just a scenario. Then we had to migrate, move the business with zero finance pretty much, whilst keeping it alive and keeping the original business alive. A lot of pressure. And I think that I was really grinding through those days at that point.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where one day outside the gate at work, I just dropped to the floor. I didn't faint or anything like that, but I just felt shakiness inside my body.
Yep.
And I was like, I've got to sort this out. And for me, having that is like, I won't allow myself to get close to that again. It's interesting that you say that when somebody's had that once or a scenario like that, they're likely to have it again. For me, it's a trigger to, okay, fine, I can see the pattern that got me there. I said, look, everyone takes the mick. I watch patterns and I learn patterns. That's like my thing. If this starts going this way again, I've just got to stop it and move it.
Now, a couple of things. One is, because you've been there before, the body, you can go into burnout. Like right. When I said trauma, sometimes it's embedded. We need therapists, and we need the beautiful people in the world who can start to unravel that for us and with us. So there is steps that we need to take. Commonly, though, what we find is we went through it, we collapsed at a gate, and then we just got on with life. We had a week off, or we had a few days off, and then we just cracked on. So the way we then deal with it is protection. So I'm not going to allow myself to get there again, and so we really start to shield and avoid. And that can be detrimental sometimes.
Yeah, I think mine was, I don't know, mine was just like a pure defiance, maybe. I was like, this has got to change. Regardless what the outcome happens anywhere, to anybody, it's got to change.
So what did you do about that? When you decided that something's got to change, what did you change?
I stopped doing the hours I was doing.
Yeah.
I stopped doing the weekends. And for a little while, there was this stuff isn't getting done. But then after a while, it got done. And things worked themselves out. And I think that was a learner for me. And I haven't had a burnout scenario, but I've had other scenarios where, at the beginning, I used to be in at 6, out at 8, for years, 6 years, most weekends. My first little boy was born. And everybody that I know that's been successful or anything along those lines has said, I wish I spent more time with my kids and not work. I said, oh, God, listen to this. So I had a day a week off. The business needed me 6 days a week, and I've now decided to drop to a 4-day week. And I just did it, and it was horrible. For the first 3 months, it was horrible. My phone was ringing all the time. The stress was about 1,000th of the time that it was if I was at work. But I just thought, I'm going to stick to this. And I did. And eventually, things worked themselves out because I had to work out ways or employ people and then earn more money to employ those people to cover the gaps. And I think if you focus on what your goal is, it will work itself out. I didn't have a strategy to get there, to be honest with you. That's not my thing. My thing is make the decision and then work it out afterwards, right? As I've matured in business, that's changed. Like the bigger the business, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But personally, I probably still do that. But for me, that's what it was, and I'm a big believer of that. That if you make that decision, because I think sometimes you can sit there and go, "What's the strategy? What's my plan? How am I going to do this?" You spend forever thinking about it, and you don't actually take the action. And where if I've gone right, I'm off on a Wednesday now. I'm just off. I've told everybody the reason why. At the beginning, it was when my little boy was asleep, I was still working. When he went to bed at night, I would then work till midnight to catch up those hours. So I was off during the day, but I was working at night. And then eventually, it started to lower down that, okay, now I'm working till 11 o'clock. Now I'm working till 10 o'clock. Now I'm working till 9 o'clock. And then now I'm not working in the evening. I'm still doing it whilst he's asleep. Now I'm not working whilst he's asleep. So, it doesn't happen overnight, but slowly but surely, over probably a 3-month period, that changed. And I still had phone calls and stuff, but hey, I was lucky that I was off, so I was okay with that. But the bit at the beginning was awful.
Yep.
And there was no one to share it with.
Yes.
No one to help. Like my wife she used to see me and be like, I wish I could just help you. And I'd be like, yeah, but by the time I've shown you what I need to be done, I'd do it myself.
There's 2 things in your story.
Go for it.
One is how you've normalized every step. So to leave the house at 6 and get home at 8 is normal because that's what's required.
I think I used to enjoy it as well, though. Yeah. I think I was addicted to it, to be honest with you.
So your relationship with stress, no one says you're going to get burnt out because you're working from 6 to 8. People expect me to come in as a stress scientist and go, why don't you slow down? Why don't you stop things? No. We can push people. In fact, we want to. And the stress response is a beautiful response in the body. We can utilize it. Your relationship with stress is important.
Yeah.
Because if I'm excited and I'm stressed and I'm working long hours, but I'm building something, it's exciting, I'm in. If I start to then run out of resources, which is technically burnout, then I start to get less excited and I start to see this little detrimental until my body will go, do you know what? No, thanks. We can't keep doing this. And I'm going to force you into a shutdown. But what you have there, the second part, is what we call a transcendental moment. And so what forces change? Because you're normalizing this at every step of the way. What's forced the change? The pain point.
There's catalyst there.
Yeah. And all of a sudden you're sitting at a gate in a heap on the floor thinking, what am I doing?
I mean, they were a couple of years apart, to be honest with you, but
so is burnout. Burnout it's not a cliff that we fall off, we're going good, fall off. When I said to you before about early warning signs, we can often see the telltales when it's presented to us. But if I ask people, they're like, no, this is just normal. No, this is just normal.
Yeah. It's where I was realizing that before I was going in at 6, I'm excited. Now I'm going in at 6 and, oh my gosh, it feels hard work.
Yeah.
And I still work really hard. Of course I do, like we all do.
Yeah.
I think that I think that 70% of the time that I went in every morning, every evening, and at weekends is because I was identifying with the fact that if you speak to business owners, that is what they say you do. And that is how they justify what they do. That's just life. And I think that I wanted to be a business owner. I wasn't at this point, and I wanted to be, I was buying a business, but I didn't class myself as an owner at that point. And I was like, okay, well, if everyone I'm meeting says that they work every hour God sends them, and they work when they go on holiday, and they're constantly engaged on their phone and sending emails even in the evenings and stuff, and that's what I'm doing. And I didn't make that conscious decision, but I think that is probably how I identified as a person. And it's like, yeah, I own my own business, but I do this. So that's what we were saying about justifications earlier.
Yep.
And yeah, it can work as a short amount of time if you enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I think it was my hobby. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed finding new things. Sometimes I miss it.
Yeah.
Now I miss that I'm not as active as I used to be. And if I'm honest, if you speak to my leadership teams, I struggle not being as active because I've been wired that way for 10 years.
Yep.
But I appreciate the work I'm doing now is way more probably beneficial than me being there at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
For stability, for employees, for everything else. But I think that that's a really good point. Like off that point, just quickly, I hope this doesn't take you on a different track, but I was saying that my energy is in the morning. Okay, and after about 1 o'clock, I'm in sort of, I don't know, not as engaged mode. I want to be in the business, but I'm not drive in the afternoon.
Yeah.
If I sort of float through that bit to about 6 o'clock and I'm still on my laptop at 6, about 6:30, 7 o'clock, I get a second wind.
Yeah.
Where I'm absolutely buzzing again until sort of midnight. Why is that?
Well, there's an accelerated responses. So if I can't show it here, but if I took what we call a 5-point cortisol collection,
yep.
So I take 2 in the morning, 1 at lunch, 1 in the afternoon, and 1 just before bed. Cortisol's primary role is to energize and mobilize the body.
Yep. It's what wakes you up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get one, normally about your third phase of sleep, so you get your first cortisol release, because people think there's no cortisol because it's fight or flight, we get no cortisol. So we get our first release, depends on what time you go to bed, around about 3 in the morning, which most of us recognize that's when we wake up and need to pee.
Right.
So we get this first cortisol release about that phase, and then we get the second phase in the awakening response. Now, we get this rise, this cortisol rise in the morning to mobilize energy and to energize and get the systems primed. We lose that system about midday to 1 p.m. So when I speak to, and it's always the same, I've done this for years, spoiler alert. So I'd go in and if I'm speaking to a group of people, I'll go, how do you feel about 1 to 2 p.m.? And they would often go, I need a coffee, I need a chocolate, so false stimulants, because we rely on that pathway. So we prime that pathway, this stress, anxious response, this adrenal and cortisol response, and then we lose that pathway. We've lost an energy system in the body because we're reliant on it. Now that's when we get that phase between, let's pick a number, 1 p.m. and 3, 4 p.m. and we're non-functional. We're feeling fatigued or tired, or I'm trying to think of the language I would often hear, like almost a bit unhappy and miserable in the afternoon. different language for different people. And so I would often say to that point earlier, so how productive are you at work? Oh, I don't really like speaking to people. I don't feel like I can get stuff done. So why don't you do administration work? Why don't you do what we call low-level growth work? Just stick a 2-hour block in the afternoon of doing low-level growth work, which is normally your back-end stuff, clean up stuff, get yourself organised. And then when you get that second wind, that time of night for me is when I do my best writing.
Right.
So I'll go home and have dinner, and then I'll come up, got an idea. And I'll just, maybe I'm recording on my phone, voice recording, or maybe I'm just quite creative.
It's like a buzz it hits me as.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always hit me. If I go home and have dinner, or whatever, and then I can sit there and start falling asleep. But it is only when I'm engaged in something. So it hasn't really happened since I've been at home more. But when I used to be at work, I'd be like, sort of, it felt like I'm grinding through. 7 o'clock, it's like bang, and I find that I'm really engrossed in something again, and I've just smashed out so much work in the final sort of 2 hours of my evening, and I'm going home absolutely buzzing, and it's just weird how it just hits me again.
Yeah, some of it could be pattern, like behavioural,
right?
Some of it could be physiology. It depends on the individual. We don't.
I think it's sort of, it takes me a bit of time to get back into something, but when I'm in it, I'm in the flow again.
Yeah,
probably the best way to describe it.
Flow is a great word. We talk about flow a lot. I think that's gone off the boil a bit now. But we used to talk about flow states, and then how do we create a flow state? It's like, hang on a minute, that's pretty tough because you're battling against physiology in the body. But I find Sunday is a great day for me to do writing. I find afternoon, evenings when I do a lot of research work and writing work. I just found that worked for me, and like I say, not every day. Sometimes if I'm in the gym on a Wednesday or I've had it's been a big week, and by the time I hit Thursday, Friday, I'm not feeling that creative. Great, not those days.
Yeah.
But that's what we talk about. I've got the ability to control when I pick up and put down, which is not what we experience in the workplace. We're often dictated to, and we're often controlled, and that is another issue we have with, I feel like I've got a lack of control.
So it's like the flexibility scenario of employees, but actually using it for good versus just for the sake, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, giving people flexibility, we often have this fear around, well, are they going to abuse that flexibility?
Yeah, I always think you have to build up trust first.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
No.
And I think also with new employees, we have a thing where you have to be in the office for, say, at least a couple of months first. Otherwise, they don't embed in the culture.
Yeah.
They don't embed in the people.
That's right.
It's really hard to build relationships over like Zoom and the odd meeting here and there on a phone. So, we might be a bit traditional in that way, but I think it's really good. We're a community kind of business. Like, we don't, not like the business it does, but like we are people. We like people. We like engagement. We like being around people.
Yeah. It was
intend to be that way.
It was almost a counter to the working from home, wasn't it? It was working from home was the promised land, and we were almost forced, but then it was the best thing ever. And then after that, we've got this whole piece around lockdowns and shutdowns. Like, actually, I don't like working. I can't. I hate working from home. I feel like maybe it's FOMO. I don't know what it is, but I just like to get out, interact with humans, and
project-based or a day or something like that, but my home has to be empty. So now I've got young kids there. There's absolutely no way I can work from home. It just doesn't make it.
No.
They either want me or they're noisy. You can't focus.
Yeah.
But a day out, so all of the employees that I have anywhere in any businesses have an opportunity to at least have one day out.
Yeah.
Even if they're quite a manual person. The only ones are engineers, right? It's really hard to fix a machine that's on somebody's site from home.
Yeah. That's coming.
But they have the flexibility of they can start and finish whenever the hell they want.
Yeah.
They can start at 2 a.m. if they want to go home at like 12, whatever the time gap is.
Yeah.
Or they can do a double long day one day and a short day the next. They have that flexibility. But I think that the day out, if you're in a quiet environment, you can get all of that admin kind of stuff and just blitz it out.
So one of the interesting bits of feedback and data we got from working from home is that you don't get the visual or the audio cues for security.
Okay.
So I found, maybe I'm reading it, I just found it bloody fascinating, but what I don't get are the little nods across the office, or the inclusion in the conversations, or the well done, Chris. I don't get any of that work.
You do feel out the loop. We've got a remote engineer, and he's always like, I wish I was closer to feel like more part of the team. So we try and do things where we're halfway so he can see us.
And that's not a business transaction. That's not a doing your job. That's a human connection that is. It's a little nod. Let's have a coffee and a walk. It's something where even though I've got the logo on my chest or it's on my screensaver, and I realize I'm working for your organization, and I understand the values because it's on my screensaver as well, but I don't feel connected. And that's the piece I think is missing. Some people love working for
support. So I think when you're in an office, you can pick up when someone's struggling.
Yeah.
You know, so you just nip over and just go, fancy a coffee or something like that. Yeah, do that. Like, there's many a time I have a checkpoint with people and I'm like, you're right. Yeah. They'll go, yeah. And I'm like, you sure you seem a bit different? Yeah. And they're like, yeah, fine. They were working from home. I would never say it, so I would never know.
No. We mentioned it right before we started recording, and it's a dialogue. And I said to you, clients will, if I get an opportunity to have a 20, 25 minute chat to a leader, I get their tailored responses. I get the responses they think they need to get me off the call, because they realize they're having this conversation because, you know, someone's worried about them or they think they need it. It's a coaching conversation. If I done a day in the life of where I shadow that person and walk around, or I'm in the presence of that person, you pick it all up. They call it 3 levels of listening. So it's not just the words that come out of your mouth, it's the tone, the pace, it's the body language. And all of that tells me a story. And when we talk about mapping right at the beginning, and I talked about the physiological markers and the physical data versus that mental state, and then how that projects as behaviors and language, that's the bit that we love. That's why you need both. The data set's just a data set. I need the human interaction. Tell me how you feel. Yeah, great. And then that depends on whether we've built a trust piece on that. This is the physical data. Now let's have a conversation. And then I'll start to look at the language, listen to the words, and then I'll try and map that all together. And that's when we have deeper conversations. That's when I can do my best work. Can I do it through a data set? That tells me whether we should be having a conversation. Can I do it with you filling in a questionnaire? That might be a cry for help, or it might be some sort of reach out or red flag, but often people just don't bother. So putting those 3 bits together is power power to make change and support people.
I think that's a lot to do with intuition as well. I think so. Yeah. Like, I'm a big believer of, like, when somebody's saying something and I'm just getting the feeling that something's not quite right, and that's because I'm picking up on their tonality, the way they're saying it, their physiology. Just thinking the words that you're saying don't match this. That's right now. That's right. There's something here. So then that lets me hold in, and I'll dig in for a bit, and I'll go, right, here we go. Let's see if we can get the truth. Not because I want them to, just, I don't know, whatever I'm trying to say. Like, I want the truth. Because if you can't have the truth, you can't work on anything. We're just playing around and setting some goals or whatever for what is not real, then that's no good. Like, I need to know the actual truth. What it is. If you're open enough in the environments we were saying about psychological security, which is what we aim for as one of our markers, if it's that scenario and you can be brutally truthful, then what a great relationship that can be.
I'll tell you how that plays out in business. Right, guys, we're going to go through a massive growth trajectory. We want to accelerate the business. We think we're going to position well in the market. And everyone's like, yeah. And then on the inside, they go, no way.
What a load more work that's going to be.
I am struggling right now, and you want to do more.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah. And that's when people, why did they leave? I don't get it.
We learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Because I thought, for me, that's exciting.
Yeah.
For others, some of the teams were like, more.
Yeah.
And that's all they hear.
Yeah.
They don't hear. In my head, I'm going, okay, so more clients, more money, more pay rises, more benefits. I'm thinking all of this, but I've communicated it as we really want to grow this year. And then to me, I can see all the other bits, but I haven't communicated all those other bits to them. No. And I haven't said, by the way, some teams are going to get more work that are underskilled, some won't, some are going to, and that's how company can get it really, really wrong.
And some leaders think they're protecting them by not giving them the whole picture.
Yeah.
So, well, actually, they're just going to interpret and make the story up in their own head.
Yeah.
And often that story will be justified. We've said that word a few times today, by how they feel and what the steps they're going to take next, which sometimes is they lead the business.
Yeah. And that goes to the point of why things like really good one-to-ones and keeping that communication going throughout the business, not just an email saying, just so you know, everyone, we're going to hit 5% more this year or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you have to. So then if you've got these touch points with people all the time, then they're kind of in your tribe. They know what's going on. You should have communicated 90% of it. Humans always make an error. So there's going to be a 10% that we haven't communicated, but they've got enough trust that they know that they don't have to worry. Because why would Michael say something that I need to worry about, because we've got this trust between us and everything else.
Yeah.
And they feel that they can approach.
Yeah.
Instead of making the assumption of, oh my God, that needs more work, they might go, have you got 5 minutes afterwards? I've just got a quick question.
Yeah.
No problem. I'm up to it already, and you're now saying we're going to do 5% more. Yeah, my apologies. I'm in sales team, your service.
Yeah.
So we're going to get the growth from sales, not service, because we know that service is already at capacity.
Yeah.
And if service does grow, we're going to employ another. Okay, fine, no problem at all.
Yeah.
But it's the people that don't dare come and speak to you because you haven't got that level of psychological safety or trust or whatever it is.
That's a powerful insight. And from experience going into lots of different organizations, we're talking global all the way to boutique and small and local. What I find is that the leadership teams, or even the founders, let's go there, have got that, do what it takes to get the business over the line. And then we've got people in our teams who just want to be employed.
Yeah.
It's just a job.
Mismatch.
Yeah. And they're great employees. They are loyal, but they do want to go home and when their dinner's still warm on the table. And I find that's a fascinating piece for me, is that do we find lots of mini-me's that want to run as hard as I do and play as long as I play? Or do I just need someone who's great at their role that can do it, and then they get the flexibility to go, I want to go home now?
And when I said mismatch there, what I mean is the way they're communicating. So if one's like, let's do this, we're going to go over the line 50% more this year, growth. And you've got employees that are like, I'm engaged, I love the company, but I want a life outside of work.
Yeah.
And all they're doing is talking and they're thinking it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to communicate in their language, not your language.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you can, I'm guilty of it in the past. You think everyone thinks like you.
Yeah.
You think everyone's excited by going the next level, taking over a market, whatever. They're not.
No.
You just, what your home is, right? You just get to the point where you think, well, I did. I can't say for everybody, but at one point in the businesses, I was like, growth, moving forward. Why could no one want to move forward? Why does nobody want a promotion? I struggle to understand it. But now I think it's probably a maturity thing in business.
Yep.
You have to learn it through experience.
Yep.
You can be told it a million times, but you have to physically understand it. And we've got employees now that are very highly driven. We've got employees that love their work-life balance. We've got employees of in-betweens as well. And they're all great. You just have to understand who they are. And one's really happy doing their job. And, I've ended up having somebody leave in the company because I was trying to promote them. And that was an eye-opener for me.
Yeah. I didn't want the responsibility.
They never told me, but he's a good friend. We spoke about 2 years after he left, and he was like, look, I appreciate everything you were doing. I appreciate all the training, everything. I just don't believe I was ever going to be that manager. I'm like, whoa, like, to me, that's crazy, because if somebody would give me opportunities, I would take them.
Yep.
And that's my fault for not knowing who that was. That was very early on within business for me, but that was a big learner for me.
Take that small example that someone who's doing well in their role and you want to promote them, it should be exciting, but their stress levels are really high. Now they're at risk, even though we would perceive that as, they could be doing more. We could be giving them more opportunity. They could be getting excited about this. In their world, that's actually not what they're moving forward to or what they're excited about. And so that has a physiological impact. It drains resources on them. They're anxious about having the conversation with you. They're anxious about, oh God, Monday, he's going to have that conversation again. And so when it comes to the data sets, especially around stress and immune physiology, we often want to categorize, well, if they're in that position, then they should have this type of data. But there's so many variables that impact that little data set. And that's why for us at Health Tech Global, we're looking at this going, all right, So let's get some data over the next month, and we'll start to show you where the risk sits for the individuals, but for us in the organization, where the risk sits in our teams.
Yeah.
Let's not blanket well-being. Let's not blanket this across the org, because that you're going to miss 90% of the workforce.
Yeah.
Let's really start to look at where we should direct spending, where we should maybe allocate more resource, where we could grow teams, support teams. And at an individual level, we can be working with them at the same time to be able to reach those targets. And that approach, that human-centered approach, is about like the organization. Where are you going? Where are you now? How do we get you there? And then you as an individual, where do you want to go? Where are you currently at? I might get people who go, do you know what, Chris, I just love my job. I don't want to change. But I can't say that because they're going to feel like I'm not committed to the company.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah. And you look at that and you go, well, what are you going to do? Well, I have to leave. I don't want to. I love it here, but I have to leave. And I'm looking at, I'll piece all this together and go, wow, we're missing so many opportunities here to keep amazing people to do great things in our businesses.
Yes.
And all can come from a little healthy selfie.
Healthy selfie. We should end on that bit.
We should.
Lovely. All right, Chris, well, I really appreciate you coming today, and you've given us so much to talk about. We bounced about a bit, but I think it was all relevant on the subject. And I think the subject of stress is obviously high at the moment. But I think that the way you're approaching it and the way I've been hearing it is a lot more than just everybody's stressed and they need to have another vacation day.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. It's nice to know that it's from the employee's point of view. Yes, it's for the business, but it's all starting with the employee, which is great.
They are, but risk starts and ends with our people.
Yep.
And that's why it's important that if we can support those, we're going to have movement. It's going to be noisy. We're going through change constantly. That can be stressful in its own right, but having that insight can help us understand where we should direct spending, where we should allocate resource, and whether we are in a position, foundations, we talked about it very early on, whether we are in the position to accelerate. Do we put ourselves more at risk by accelerating now because our people are not in the position? Foundations aren't ready. So on that note, it's exciting for us. The conversations, I'm talking to health insurance, talking to those big players who can then start to dictate and start to look at these organizations and go, well, okay, so where does the risk sit? Are we ready? And can we then start to really, it's not force, but then can we really get serious about this investment about well-being? We've been playing around for a long time. We know the metrics aren't getting any better. There is a risk here, and I'll use that word again, apologies to the listeners, but there is a risk that organizations go, do you know what, we're going to forget about it. It's not working. And I think that's at the detriment of the workforce and the people.
And they'll learn the hard way.
Yep. It's going to be, well, we can avoid that.
Yeah.
I think that's the key thing. Michael, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure just bouncing around ideas, sharing thoughts. I've loved it. So I appreciate your time.
That's been brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Cheers.